When I was 10 years old, I had my first pet. My father went to his friend's house to play. I was at school that day, so I wasn't able to go with him. I was looking forward to his return because he said he would give me a surprise. At the end of the night, I heard the doorbell. I ran to the door to greet my dad. When I opened the door, my dad was standing outside with a smile on his face and a cute Labrador by his side. My eyes went wide and I couldn't believe my eyes. This was my first pet. The Labrador had gentle, intelligent eyes that revealed endless kindness. His tail was wagging wildly as if to tell me that he was feeling very happy too. I immediately hugged the cute puppy and it licked my cheek enthusiastically. My dad told me that his friend's dog had given birth to many puppies and he decided to adopt one for me. From that day on, my Labrador and I became good friends. I named him Chocolate because I love chocolate so much. We spent many happy times together. Every day when I came home from school, I would run to the yard to play with Chocolate. It was always there for me, both when I was happy and when I was sad. When I reached the age of 15, I hardly had time to play with Chocolate due to the pressure of school. Study and extracurricular activities took up most of the time every day. One day, I went out to meet a friend and forgot to close the door again. I didn't realize that this tiny oversight would bring me deep self-loathing. When I returned home in the evening, my father was standing at the door waiting for me. He had a shovel in his hand, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. My father told me that Chocolate had sneaked out of the house and had been hit by a truck and killed. I couldn't take the news. I went into the backyard and dug a grave. My hands trembled and tears blurred my vision. I stood quietly in front of the grave. My hand gently touched the earth on the grave. I felt endless remorse and sadness because I did not cherish the time I spent with Chocolate. After I graduated from college, I joined a construction company, and our main task was to lay pipes. One Friday afternoon, my coworkers and I were discussing going to a soccer game over the weekend. Suddenly, our boss approached us with a serious look on his face. He told us to stop talking so we could leave work on time. The boss asked me to go to the truck to get a tool, and I turned around and walked to the truck that was parked. When I returned with the tool, the truck was out of control and was rapidly approaching in my direction. I looked for a place to hide, but it happened so fast that I was too late to get out of the way. At the moment of impact, I felt a sharp pain. I was knocked to the ground by the powerful impact, and blood flowed from my arm. My body felt very cold. My boss asked a colleague to bring a first aid kit and called the emergency services. Time became blurred and distorted in this moment. Suddenly, I left my body, like an observer floating above. I could clearly see the paramedics arriving on the scene and they were doing their best to provide me with assistance. I watched the scene with indifferent eyes. There was no fluctuation inside me, as if I was in a surreal state. Time became a blur and I felt more and more disconnected from the real world. The paramedics used cardiac resuscitation to try to restore my breathing and heartbeat. I could feel their tension. I watched as the paramedics lifted me into the ambulance and prepared to transport me to the hospital for further treatment. Suddenly, a tunnel appeared in front of me. As I entered the tunnel, I could barely see anything. As I continued on, the tunnel began to gradually become brighter. I could see tiny droplets of water shimmering on the walls, as if they were dewdrops oozing from the tunnel walls. These water droplets shimmered in the light with a colorful glow, as beautiful as jewels. After walking for some distance, I found that the sides were covered with gorgeous crystals. They emitted a soft glow, like the guardians of the tunnel. The crystals come in many different colors. There were blue stones and green emeralds, each emitting a unique glow. I also heard the pleasant music, the sound echoing through the tunnel. It was an enchanting and serene melody, with soft notes intertwined. The tunnel became brighter and brighter. As I emerged from the tunnel, I was surrounded by a large bush of wildflowers. These flowers were blooming in the most vibrant colors. They swayed in the breeze as if they were dancing with joy. They were the most beautiful flowers I had ever seen. They shone in the sunlight and gave off an intoxicating fragrance. I felt their vitality and beauty. Each flower was like a work of art. A fragrance permeated the flowers. I walked along this sea of flowers, enjoying every moment. I gently touched the petals and felt their soft texture. In this beautiful place, I felt the peace and beauty. All worries and cares were forgotten. On the opposite side of the field, I noticed a man walking toward me. He was wearing a pair of pants and a shirt and looked very neat. What struck me as odd was that he was not wearing shoes. As he approached, he smiled at me and said, "This place is beautiful, isn't it?" Although I've heard of people communicating through their minds during near-death experiences, his lips were clearly moving. "Where are we?" I asked him curiously. He smiled and replied, "There is no specific name for this place, but you can call it heaven." The man continued, "Would you like to go for a stroll with me?" I nodded my head. As we continued to walk forward, a small house suddenly came into view. The house was simple and welcoming, surrounded by beautiful natural scenery. Next to the house flowed a narrow stream, the clear water flowing slowly and making a soft flowing sound. The man suddenly blew a loud whistle. I saw a dog running toward us from a distance. I recognized it immediately. It was Chocolate. I thought I would never see it again. My heart was filled with joy and surprise. Chocolate rushed towards me, its tail wagging wildly and jumping up and down in excitement. I was pounced on by the chocolate and it started licking my face. The man smiled at me and said, "I can see that it really misses you." I shuddered and whispered in reply, "Me too, I thought I would never see the chocolate again." I picked up a stick by the river and the chocolate immediately stared at it excitedly. We began to play a game, and the sound of joyful laughter echoed along the creek. Here, I spent a happy time with Chocolate. I don't know how long I stayed in this beautiful place. The man turned toward me and smiled and said, "Ready to go back?" Confused, I asked, "Where to?" "I want to stay here." He explained, "Sorry, it's not your time yet, so you have to go back. But don't worry, the chocolate will be here for you." I was so lost, I didn't want to leave it. Although my heart was full of reluctance, I knew that I had to go back. I nodded my head silently. The man reached out his hand and gently touched my shoulder. An overwhelming warmth was transferred to me. I felt a vortex that was surrounding me. Before I left, I took one last look at the chocolate, which sat quietly among the flowers. I bid it goodbye, grateful for the joy and companionship it had brought me. I was surrounded by a soft glow and felt like I was returning to the real world. The return process was accompanied by a feeling of lightness and peace as my soul gradually returned to its original place. My consciousness gradually cleared up and I began to feel my surroundings and the sensations in my body. I could hear the faint cacophony of voices in the hospital room. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the doctors and nurses beside me. My heart was filled with gratitude. I understood that the beautiful paradise was not an illusion, but a special experience that I had personally experienced. I saw my father standing by the bedside, nervous and full of concern. He reached out his hand and gently touched my cheek. "Son, you are awake." My father's voice was tinged with excitement. I smiled and nodded my head. I wanted to sit up, but the doctor told me that I could only lie down now. My lower leg had been fractured and needed further treatment to return to normal. I would have to have another surgery before I could walk normally. The doctor scheduled me for the surgery. On the day of the surgery, I was wheeled into the operating room and the smell of sterile water filled the room. The doctors and nurses were busy preparing the surgical instruments and equipment. The surgery took 3 hours. Over the next few weeks, I received specialized rehabilitation care and physical therapy. My calf muscles became weak from the long recuperation and walking became difficult. However, I insisted on daily rehab and gradually built up muscle strength through targeted exercises and workouts. I gradually regained the ability to walk, and I felt very relieved and satisfied. When I returned home, I shared my experience in heaven with my family. However, they didn't act like they believed it. They thought it was just a hallucination or dream that I had while I was in a coma. To me, that experience was so real and profound. I was not interested in religion, so I did not see Jesus or angels. However, I did visit a beautiful and peaceful place. I believe that one day, when I finally leave this world, I will meet with chocolate again and we will be together forever. I also understand my family's thoughts. I hold that experience close to my heart, and it has become a source of strength and inspiration within me. I want to pass on some comfort and hope to those who have lost their pets. Animals will find their own paradise. I want to tell you that animals have souls too, and they have their own paradise. There, they are free from pain and disease. For those of you who have lost your pets, I hope you will keep the love you have for them. Although they have left us, their souls are still connected to us. The bond we have with our animals is unique. They are an integral part of our lives. Past, present and future. They have taught us to love unconditionally. Their presence is a precious gift that brings us laughter and companionship.